Hey there, this is Jen T. Grace, founder of Publish Your Purpose, and I am sitting here with Mary Reid today to talk about your book, Reading My Mind, diving into the life and personal journals of a college student. So I have this beautiful visual here. Mary, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I feel like I just said this to you before we hit live. I feel like this is one of those celebratory times of this process, right? Like you have been working on this for, the writing part of it for an extraordinarily long period of time. Then there was the publishing process that took a while, and now we're here and we can like sit back and be like, all right, we're here. We did this awesome thing together. And so I want to kind of just start with asking you just to kind of share a little bit about yourself and kind of like what you do in the world.
Sure. I live in Chicago with my husband and my son and my 2 rescue dogs, and I work at a law firm. I'm a paralegal, and it's a personal injury med-mal firm, but I work in the railroad section, so we help injured railroad workers. So I wrote this book in my spare time.
And so you're all of the spare time that you have.
Yes.
How long did it take you to write?
I've had that question a lot. I think it would be fair to say probably a good 1.5 years. However, there's 4 months that I took off because I didn't know if I was just documenting my college life or if I was really going to go through with this. And so I remember that time. I remember sitting there and not working on it and not knowing what to do. And then I got a push and now we're here.
Yeah. So you just kind of alluded to a little bit of what the book is about. So can you just kind of share high level, what the book is about and maybe who the book is written for?
Sure. The book contains a lot of my college journal entries. So I journaled every single day in college, and I just wanted to capture my experience. And I literally forgot about these journals. And then when we moved into my current house 5 years ago, I found these journals and I read them and I was laughing because, at 22, you think you know everything. And I just thought it would be a really cool idea to share the journal excerpts with kids going off to college, along with my 20 years hindsight. So for example, I had a really awful roommate situation freshman year, and I had to learn to navigate through it on my own. I was 1,000 miles away from home. I was dropped off. I had to explore and discover this whole new world on my own and stick up for myself and figure things out. And so I just wanted to be able to give this book to kids heading off to college with all this advice. And, you go through experience and you have to learn things on your own. But I just thought some things would be helpful to share.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I remember being to me, it just seems so cool. I don't have like a sophisticated word for it, but just the fact that you have all of your journals from all of college, that just seems wild to me because I don't think that I know anyone else who can say that same thing. Like was there like some, I don't know, like forethought then of like, oh, I might want to read this later? Or was it like, what was the...
Just capturing it and truly, it was a way to get my thoughts down on paper, everything I was going through. In today's world, if you have a problem or, you're just seeking the advice of a therapist, anyone could get on a phone right now and find somebody and be talking to somebody in 20 minutes. But 20 years ago, we didn't have that. And journaling allowed me to get through my thoughts of the day, put it down on paper, and to move on. And I think it's very therapeutic, and still is today, for people just to get things down on paper. And it's interesting to read it and, see what you're going through, and maybe you write things differently than you think of what's going on. It helped me a lot to get through issues or just to document the fun I had. There's a lot of fun.
Yes, from what we've seen, yes, there seems a lot going on.
Yes.
When so during the process, like I'm looking at your book right now. The way that I think the way that it's laid out, obviously I'm biased, you're biased, like that's how it rolls here. But there's the actual journal entry. So you can actually see, like it feels very authentic because you can see your handwriting in real time and kind of the evolution of it from, from year 1 to year 4 of school. When you were deciding what journal entries to include, because like you said, you're either kind of like using it from a therapeutic standpoint,
Mhm.
and or sometimes you're just documenting how much fun you were having. Like what was your process of deciding like what stories would be helpful or what journal entries would be helpful for a young student to see versus not?
That was challenging. I read through all 4 years. Now, granted, every day was documented, so I read through it and started tabbing them. This is a good one to deal with roommate situations. This is a good one that deals with, finding your core group of friends. And so I would just start tabbing the entries. And then once I felt like I had, a good amount of them, I went through again, but there's also a story I have to tell, right? Just navigating through college, balancing academics and athletics. That was a big thing for me. I was a Division I college diver, and you had to keep your GPA up and to remain on the team every year. And just balancing this new life with new friends and school and diving. And so I just tried to have giant umbrellas of those topics and tag the ones that were relevant to them, and then develop the storyline.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of work went into this because just the idea of documenting every single day, like
Yeah.
that is just so much work.
Yeah.
And like how amazing that you can like look back at your young self and see like what your mindset was and what you were thinking about and what was interesting to you, good, bad, or indifferent, right? Like they're just
Yeah. There was a lot of interesting things. Yeah. It was, I enjoyed writing it. I enjoyed reading back through it. It was a lot of fun, and it was hard too. There's relationships that I navigated through that are fully documented. And one of the editors said, you need to elaborate. And I went home, and I'm happily married. And I told my husband they want me to elaborate on this relationship. And he's like, so elaborate. And I kind of had to relive that time, which, at some points during that wasn't that pleasant, but it was definitely a journey, and but I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I'm gonna make a leap here and bring up something because you're talking about having to kind of like relive the past and having to, which is so often the case with, especially because it's like a memoir, right? Like it's just a
Yeah.
different way in which a memoir can be written. And I love how this all came out. And I think it's going to be just so easily digestible to a young person who is just trying to figure out how to navigate their own college experience. But, when you were talking about relationships that may not have been the best, I know that you were just telling me before we went live that you had someone reach out to you in this vein. So I'm curious if you'd like to share a little bit about what you told me.
Sure. So this book was published on December 6th, and about a month prior, I was at home and I got a message from an ex-boyfriend who is not in the book, who didn't make the cut. But he messaged me and said, "Am I getting money from this book?" I have not heard from this person in 20 years, which is a good thing. And it was pretty wild because the book hadn't even come out yet. And it's like, how do you know? And then the morning on the 6th at 6 a.m., he reached out and said, "I'm shocked you didn't include me in the book. And, good luck with everything." It was just,
Yeah.
it was bizarre.
I think there's so many things I could say that I'm going to refrain from saying.
Same.
it's just one of those really interesting things from a position standpoint of you being an author now, right? Like there's this quote from Anne Lamott that says, if you wanted someone to write better about you, they should have treated you better, or I'm paraphrasing, but it's something to that effect. And I think that there's something so powerful about being an author, because you get to control your narrative. You get to control what story you tell and how you tell it and who you include as a someone who's orbiting that story. So, I'm sure to this person, it was probably maddening of like, how dare she not include me, and like very ego based and very narcissistic. But at the end of the day, like there's something so powerful that like you're the one that gets to own this and gets to decide how the story is told. And I think that's so powerful. And it's just such a testament to why putting your story in a book like this can be so incredibly powerful.
Definitely. And there is, a person that I dated for 2 years, and he's fully documented freshman and sophomore year, but I was very careful. The point was not to call him out or say you were mean. The point was fully to share all of the red flags, all of them that I missed with young girls who are so impressionable and who are so eager. And I just wanted to share, don't lessen your value for somebody else. That's a huge lesson that, it took years for me to learn. And I just think it's important, people won't like you and for who you are, and you can't change that. But being yourself is the most important, and you will find your friends and the people that want to be by you or with you.
And I think what you're kind of speaking to as well is, you're not out to slander anybody. Nobody is like that. I don't think that's I'm sure there's plenty of authors that's their intention. Not anyone I work with.
Correct.
But at the same time, like you have to know like where your story begins and ends and where that person's story begins and ends. And so I think it's a very fine balance that I think you struck really, really well, because you're still able to highlight and illustrate those red flags, which are very, very important, especially for young college students to be able to see, but at the same time, not, drawing attention to and saying this person's awful or any other, descriptive wording.
Sure.
Yeah. It's one of those things as authors that everyone balances of like, okay, how do I write about this person or this situation without offending everybody around me?
My mom said something that was in my head a lot during this book is, if you have nothing to say, don't say it at all. So it's very true.
It is a valid comment.
Yes.
From mom.
Yes.
So when we kind of go back high level for a minute, how are you defining your purpose as it relates to this project?
I feel like, even in my current job and with this book, I feel like my purpose is to help others. And I hope that this book helps college kids or kids going off to college or in college to get excited about it. We just went through this not fun pandemic, and, kids stood behind Zoom for years. And I personally know a couple that are terrified of going off to college now. And, the book is for kids to get excited. It's like a resurgence from the pandemic. These are all the fun things that are out there. Go live your life. And I feel like it's also a book for parents that, are questioning, is it okay to drop my kid 1,000 miles away? I know my mom didn't want to, and I'm just grateful that she let me, that she dropped me off and said, good luck. And she let me go and live my life. And I learned so much. And, I was bawling when I dropped my son off at kindergarten. I can't imagine college. However, I learned through writing this book that it's, I'm grateful for my parents for giving me the opportunity. And I hope that parents can also read this book and say, she had a lot of fun. She learned a lot. And I want my kid to experience the same thing.
Yeah. And I think what's well done with this is that the way it's written, there's nothing that specifically like states a period in time. Like it's not like someone who is about to go to college now versus someone who's about to go to college in 1999 or 2000, or it's not like, oh, I'm reading this that some grandma wrote. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's still like everything is still so present day fresh because of how it was constructed. So did you like was there intentionality about like when you were thinking about trying to write for someone who is young today that happens to be 20 years younger?
Yes, I'm very aware of it. There is one part that references an answering machine. And I asked my Elise C, who's on the cover of the book that wrote a testimonial, I asked if she knew what an answering machine was. And she's like, what? So it's like, okay, I know I have to explain this.
Mm-hmm.
I was very aware of it and intentional about trying to make things parallel to for kids that are going to school now as I did 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know you and I are the same age. So I feel like sometimes it's like in this weird middle ground because you're like, I'm not that old. But at the same time, to someone who's like 17, we're
We're
like
so old.
senior citizens.
We're so old. And, with phones, I didn't get my first phone until my 21st birthday.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
kids, and I talk about that. I talk about social media in the book, and I'm grateful I didn't have it in college because somebody would have documented the silly, not smart things that I did, and it'd be out there, and it's not. It's only my
Yeah.
journal entries.
It is kind of wild when we think about just how social media really impacts and influences how people live, especially younger people. Because as adults, we
Absolutely.
can decide to tune in or tune out. We have complete autonomy over that versus a student, like just the peer pressure of that
Yeah.
alone is enormous.
Or girl, especially for women, and this is in the book, it is so easy to get caught up on Instagram and scroll through and see these beautiful, negative size 2 models. And it's like, the comparisons aren't always healthy. And, I talk about, instead of doing that, find your plan or just be confident with who you are.
Mhm.
Going down that road is a very slippery slope. And, and
Yeah. Such a different time. You were talking
yes.
about terrible roommates. I lived on campus for 3 months because
Okay.
my experience was so bad. And I had a roommate who slept with it wasn't quite a machete, but it was like a machete sized knife in her bed with her. And then I think about in that, would that happen? Would that even be remotely possible now? Of course not. But yet in 2001, it was perfectly acceptable to sleep with a knife in your bed.
Wow.
So, it's just so wild to think about how things have changed so much.
Yes. Yes. A lot.
Yeah.
But things are still the same too. I went back and visited this summer, and the rooms are 400 square feet, and I shared a room with 3 other girls, and you get to know each other very well, very quickly.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like the size of my office. Yeah. I
Yeah.
can't imagine even having 4 adults working in here at once.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But I didn't care. I was excited to be out there, and I
Yeah.
didn't care.
Yeah, because you're out of your parents' roof, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I love this because I think that obviously the direction for this book is for someone who's young and about to go off. But I also think that it's applicable for anyone who's just curious, right? Because it's diving into the life and personal journals of a college student, right? Like it really is like being a voyeur. So there's plenty of like adults that are like, I just want to kind of like reminisce about my college days. They can easily
Sure.
read this and feel that like nostalgia almost.
Absolutely.
Which is kind of cool. It's like a secondary market of people who might be picking it up to just like have that experience. Because I know in pieces and parts kind of throughout this process, like that was happening to me, and the roommate thing is always what immediately comes to my mind because of what level of craziness I was living with. But
definitely,
it is nice to have that little nugget of nostalgia here and there for us as adults.
Fun. Yes.
Yeah. So as you moved through this process, right? So you had like your year and a half or so that it took you to write it, which is a very quick pace, by the way, and for comparison purposes. Like some people are writing their book for 3 decades. Like You really got through it very quickly in your spare time, as you were saying. And then the publishing process, I feel like, to me, it felt like it went very smoothly. Like, I feel like for the majority of it, it was like a very kind of smooth process with you. Was there anything just kind of like surprising? Like, I want to ask you both kind of surprising during the process and then surprising after the book launches. So I'll get to that second question after, but
Sure.
kind of surprising throughout this process.
Surprising to me is well, just the amount I learned. So I didn't even know the word hybrid publishing until I learned more about publish your purpose. And I sent off 16 query letters and got 16 no's, and then you were my yes. And so just learning about that process, I didn't know what a query letter was. And then once, I got in it in that timeline, I will never forget the first time I saw the timeline with the editing deadlines and this deadline. And it was like 22 lines on an Excel sheet with all the dates. And it's like, oh my gosh, that took us from March to December. And overwhelming, but amazing. And it's all been surprising. I've learned so much. It's all been so new, and I've just really enjoyed it.
I think that's awesome. And I think when you have your purpose really clear, it makes that process, even if the process itself isn't smooth, it just makes it feel like a little bit more smooth because you have those ups and downs. Because I'm sure there was some emotional roller coasters that were occurring through the editing process. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
So how did you navigate what was happening there?
My lovely husband was my soundboard. It's, what about this? They want me to do this. Should I do this? And he just wanted me to do it in the big picture, just to get this, because he was sick of hearing me talk about a book that hasn't been published for 5 years. It's like, should I do it? Should I not? He's like, just do it. Just do what they're telling you to do. You trust the professionals, and I did. And now I have a great product because of you guys.
Yeah. And obviously your husband's support, like, what a great cheerleader for you.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely.
Not everyone has a supportive spouse. So I think that's something to like really acknowledge.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And so it's now, at the time of recording this, we're like a little over a month after its launch. What is your husband like? What's his reaction been?
He loves it. I made him read it. He's not really a reader, but I made him read it. I'm like, is this okay to publish? Is it okay to put out? He loved it. He was trying to not look at the top of every page because it said Mary Reid. He goes, I'm just trying to imagine this is somebody else. He's like, I learned a lot about you. No, he's been very supportive. And it's been a surreal month with the book launches and the marketing and everything that comes with it. And now just sharing it, right? I mean, there's so many times in the last 5 years, I'm like, gosh, I wish I had this finished product to give to somebody, to mail to somebody, to market, to share, and to give to a college kid. And now I have it. And so that's just really exciting.
Yeah. It's nice when you've like been dreaming of it for so long and you're like, I finally have the thing that I can physically hold and just be like, go read this.
Yes.
Like, such a beautiful feeling.
Yes, absolutely.
So I asked you before, I don't know if I phrased it about the something unexpected, but I know that there was a little extra something unexpected now that the book has come out. So I would love for you to share that story.
Sure. So I had said I took about 4 months off with writing it. I was halfway through the book and I literally didn't know if I was just documenting my college life or if I was really going to do this. Was I really going to take the steps to be an author and to get this published? And a lot of people had said, oh, just self-publish it. And it's like, no, this is what I want. And, during COVID in March of 2020, Asia Volkman, who is an artist, I follow her on Instagram, and for her 40th birthday, she posted, calling all women. I want to pay it forward to one woman who is doing their thing. Tell me what you're doing. Are you writing a book? Are you an artist? Are you whatever you're doing? I want to give somebody $10,000 to further their dream. And it was like, all right, well, I'm gonna just do this. And it was hashtag AJAS40, Asia's 40. So I did it, and I said, I'm writing this book. And about a week later, she contacted me and said, can you send me an excerpt? And it's like, oh my gosh. And so I read through it again, and I thought I picked what the best excerpt was, and I sent that off to her. And then we continued corresponding for 2 to 3 weeks, and it was between myself and a mom in Arizona who wanted to open an art studio for kids during COVID. And she ended up winning. And my sister said, well, now you have to publish your book and send her a signed copy.
Sure do.
And I was like, yeah, right. Like, wouldn't that be cool? And so the book was published, and I would just drop little comments on Instagram on her page, and nothing ever came of it. And then a couple weeks ago, she posted a story about, turning inwards and following your gut, and, really tuning into yourself. And there's a paragraph in my book about following your gut, and it gets you to wherever you need to be faster, and just follow your gut. It will take you to where you need to be. And I took a picture of that, and I responded to her story with it. And I said, yeah, this is why you need to read my book. And then that was around lunchtime. And then at dinner, I was sitting with my husband and son, and she messaged her address to me. And I'm running around my kitchen like, oh! And my son is looking at me like, are you okay? What is happening? So I mailed it off to her, and it was a full circle moment. It's, 500, and I went back to the post. There's 537 entries, and just to be considered gave me the motivation I needed to finish the book, because I was like, this lady's interested. I need to finish this book now. She likes it. So maybe other people will too.
Yeah.
So I finished the book because she was interested in it, and then I got to send her a signed copy. So that was
so cool.
So cool.
It's like, it really is full circle.
It
because
is.
Sometimes we need that extra poke, prod, support, like just push out of the nest to know that, like, I want to do it because I think I would enjoy it, but to know that someone else wants it too, that you do not have any connection to.
And she was interested. It's like, oh my gosh. Oh, okay, I got to finish this.
Yeah. Well, I hope that she reads it and then, like, posts about it, something to kind of give you a little social boost, so that way more people see this.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll put that intention into the universe. Manifest
it. Hey, I've been manifesting a lot of things, and you just gotta keep working. So
sure do.
It's fun though.
Yeah. And so as we're kind of wrapping up here, I know that, some of what you're up to, like, you just were asked to speak in March, I believe it was, which is super exciting. And you're doing some preparation for book clubs and a book club tour. So do you want to kind of share just a little bit about that, so anyone who might be watching this conversation might know how to potentially engage with you?
Absolutely. I have been asked by a couple of my local friends. There's a lot of book clubs where I live. If I would come join the book club, and I thought that sounded so fun. And so I have a couple booked in end of January and one in February. And I have book club questions ready, and it's just fun. And so I'm available, to do it by Zoom too. And, just to be a part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see, a group of moms, perhaps I would say parents, but I feel like it's going to be the moms that kind of gather together because they're all weeping that their child is about to leave the nest. And so, I love that you're doing it on Zoom as well. And so your website is at the bottom of the screen, but it's mary-reid.com. So it's I feel like very simple to find. It's also linked in this, the description anywhere this video is accessible. You can just kind of hop over to Mary's website and just reach out and say, hey, would you be willing to do a book club with me? And the answer will be yes, which is a wonderful thing. I feel like there's nothing more fun than being in a book club where you can get the author to come in. So the fact that you're willing to do that is just a magical thing for everybody.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Sure.
Good. Is there anything that you want to mention that I did not ask you as we come to a close?
No, I don't think so.
Nice. Look at us, so efficient.
Yes.
Well, thank you for your time today. And for anyone who's watching, please go out and support Mary and her book. And so you can get Mary's book wherever books are sold. There's links that are listed in this description below this video, so you're welcome to go do that. I'm a fan of bookshop.org. Bookshop is a certified B Corp, which means that they have a commitment to the environment and sustainability, and just really, it's kind of the gold standard of business practices. So I always like to promote Bookshop. Wherever you buy it, it works for us. So, definitely check out Mary and her website, and I will see everyone else at some point in the future talking to somebody else. But today, thank you so much, Mary. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.